Today on the 10-12 podcast, we're recapping opening weekend of the NCAA tournament for the men's and women's, or at least what was done before we hit record, including the teams that have moved on to the Sweet 16, some matchups we like. One of the teams on the women's side to keep an eye on Monday, plus the openings at West Virginia on the men's side, Arizona State, BYU, and Houston on the women's side. Coming up on the 10-12.
It's time for basketball, and Uber Eats is dropping deals on game day favorites to keep you locked in on the action. Like when you're craving a buzzer beater, but also buffalo wings. Or when an upset makes you want to ugly cry into a pizza. And right now, Uber Eats has game day deals from Burger King, Buffalo Wild Wings, KFC, and hundreds more local favorites. So you can keep your eyes on the ball and your hands on a burger. Order now, only on Uber Eats. Product availability varies by region. See app for details.
Raise the rudders! Raise the sails! Raise the sails!
Captain, an unidentified ship is approaching. Over.
Roger. Wait, is that an enterprise sales solution?
Reach sales professionals, not professional sailors. With LinkedIn ads, you can target the right people by industry, job title, and more. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started today at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
Welcome to the 10-12, the podcast that covers all 16 teams in the Big 12 Conference. We are the flagship show, the 10-12 Network. Find every show on the network at 1012network.com. And of course, we are partners with Sports Social, Europe's biggest sports podcast network. I'm your host, Phillip. Thank you for joining us. On this Monday, we've got March Madness to discuss, and by we, you know who they are by now. He is the man that Kansas State fans love to hate. He's sitting right now holding a cat close to his heart. He is Andy Mitz.
Yes. She's not nearly as wild though as those Kansas State cats. So
yeah, I feel like there's some mixed messaging there. Emotional support kitty.
She just absolutely loves to sit here on my shoulder,
Yeah.
even while I'm working during the week. So I've gotten so used to it at this point that I'm just like, okay.
Meow. All right. If you do hear cat meowing, Thunder also has been pestering the let's call it the office door playroom, as you all know. Also joining us, it's really funny, the bit has now that I have two female co-hosts who get as many titles as I possibly can come up with them for, but the woman who started it all, JSJ, the vibe queen of the 10-12 Network, the voice of Iowa State women's hoops, the voice of sports in the state of Iowa, and one hell of a sneaker artist she is, Jamie Steyer-Johnson.
Oh, man. Well, hey.
Who's frozen?
That's great. Where's my little clip tool?
Get it. Grab a screen grab.
I'm working on it.
It's a perfect screen grab, too. It's just, like, I feel like this is what Jamie just needs to have up on the regular when she wants to pretend like she's here.
I literally got the snipping tool going just before the camera went off.
It was a big cheese eating.
So I have it. I know, like I actually got it. So.
All right. Well, we'll dive in on the men's side first here, Andy. Big 12. As we are recording this on Sunday night at 8:25 Central Time, Big 12's opening weekend is not yet complete. Iowa State's currently down 11 to Ole Miss at halftime, and Arizona and Oregon have not yet tipped off, though they should tip off while we are in the midst of recording. So two Big 12 teams left to finish their game, see if they can make it to the Sweet 16 to join Texas Tech, BYU, and Houston. Look, we can sit here and the Big Ten's going to get the attention for their 10-0 start. Best start any conference has ever had in the NCAA tournament, starting 10-0. They are having a very successful tournament. The SEC had a really nice Sunday and has had a nice Sunday so far because all their top seeds keep winning. Kentucky, obviously, over 3 seed Kentucky over 6 seed Illinois, 2 seed Alabama. Got a comfortable win. Florida hung on against UConn. Was really hoping for UConn to find a way to pull that one out. And Ole Miss and Iowa State going right now. And so, like, if you want to say that the SEC has done a good job, the top teams in the SEC are doing well. Obviously, you have the Arkansas upset. Based off the number of teams that the SEC got into the tournament, all the teams who were like sub 500 in conference play were out quick, very quick. And of course, Missouri. So we can debate whether or not they've done well or not. Again, the top of the conference was always good. There was never a debate. The bottom of the conference just did deserve the credit that it got. Andy, let's just start with, again, we're still waiting on 2 games to wrap up here for the Big 12. But I still, how do we grade opening weekend for the Big 12 based on getting 7 teams in, going 6-1 in the first round, 3 teams already to the Sweet 16, and 2 more trying to get there as we speak?
Yeah, I mean, looking at, the draws, I think it was actually pretty good, probably better than you would expect it in some cases. Where they're at, BYU over Wisconsin, they actually were much more in control of that game than the final score indicated until the very end when they almost gave it away in very BYU feast or famine type of situation. But I thought in general, this feels like it's about what I was expecting. So I think it's been good. I don't know that it's been like great. Great would have been everybody making it through. Thanks Kansas. But honestly, I don't think that was that unexpected if you follow Kansas at all this year.
No, it was not.
Yeah. So like this feels like it's about where it should have been. I also will note it absolutely sickens me that, one of the big notes that was it CBS or TBS or somebody had, like, the SEC is already has the second most wins ever by a conference in the NCAA tournament, which of course is going to happen when you get
14 teams in.
The most teams in. Yeah, exactly. So
that's not like it. Yeah, cool. The Big Ten starting 10-0 is way more impressive than anything the SEC has done.
For sure.
Like, that's the narrative. If we have to sit in here like, see, this backs up the SEC. Like, no, the best teams in the SEC were good. The fact that the Big 12 so far, look, Kansas and Arkansas played a hell of a game. You kind of knew Kansas was going to have trouble in that game. You get the injury, and then Arkansas makes the closing run and pulls that one out.
Yep.
Okay, but I didn't pick Kansas to get past Arkansas like that. Congrats to Arkansas for getting past St. John's team, whose best players suddenly just couldn't hit the broadside of a barn with a bazooka. So much so that he got benched, which I thought was ridiculous. Yes, but Petrino got a Petrino. What's really interesting is if you go look at Bart Torvik and look at since February 1st, if you look at the top 14 teams, now as of time of recording, 12 of the top 14 teams are still in action right now. Iowa State's number 14. They're playing as we speak. Like I said, trailing to Ole Miss. Michigan State trailing to New Mexico as we speak. But Duke made the Sweet 16. Houston did. Florida did. Alabama did. Auburn did. Maryland did with that stupid buzzer beater to knock out my Cinderella in Colorado State. Stupid Maryland. Texas Tech did. Tennessee did. BYU did. Arizona did. Wisconsin's number 12. They got beat by number 10 BYU. The only ones who haven't of the top 14 so far are number 12 Wisconsin and number 8 Gonzaga, who both lost to teams who are higher ranked than them in Bart Torvik. I'm really liking Bart Torvik right now. Yeah. Like, I think if you go to February 1st to now and look at who the best teams in the country have been, it's telling you a lot. Like, Colorado State was number 20, and they got beat by a team who was higher in Bart Torvik than they were. Like, at this point, the only teams who really got upset were St. John's, who was number 17, Missouri. I didn't really buy them that much. Clemson. Like, it's an interesting, like, it's been a really good metric, and I think it's a good thing to kind of look at as we continue to move forward and say, like, all right, who do we want to pick here moving forward?
Well, and you look at Iowa State, who's struggling against Ole Miss, but that is much more because of, I think, injury and that situation, right? Like, this is not the Iowa State team that has been number 14 since, February 1st or whatever, because they have been dealing with injuries. So this definitely, like, I agree. I think that this is probably about what you would expect from everybody at this point. Like, this is almost best case scenario, with the exception, of course, of Iowa State not playing too well right now against Ole Miss. But it is
Yeah.
halftime.
Yeah, but we'll see what happens. Of course, Arizona and Oregon. Like, I would expect Arizona to win that game, but we'll just have to see. We'll have to wait and see what happens. It's been a kind of chalky tournament. Your first buzzer beater like upset game or win is a 4 seed over a 12, and we're all upset about it. Like, outside of that, I mean, it's a pretty chalky bracket so far. It was a really surprisingly chalky day one. Like, usually your a lot of your upsets are like early Thursday morning, and we didn't see it. You look at the Sweet 16 right now. You go to the South, it's a 1 versus a 5. We're waiting on the 2, 3, 6, and 10. You go to the West, it's now 1 and 4 and 3 and 10. You go to the Midwest, it's 1, 2, 3, 4. You go to the East, it's 1, 2, 6, and we're waiting on 4 and 5. Like, it's a lot of the stuff we've paid attention to trend wise of talking about, a 7 seed or higher has made the Final Four every year but one since 2013. I think it's a 5 seed or higher has made it every year since 2011. Like, some of this stuff, this might be a year that bucks the trends. I mean, it has been so far. We talk about one of the surest best you can do is to take a first 4 team and at least get them to win a game. And neither North Carolina nor Xavier or either of the 16 team seeds did that. And so that one went out the window. Like, a lot of the trends that I've been tracking for a while didn't hold serve this year. It's been a surprisingly chalky bracket. And so, like, the games have been, like, there have been some good games. But it hasn't been as much
It's
fun.
weird, right? It's weird when the biggest upset is that there hasn't really been many upsets. Like,
I mean,
it's really strange.
Again, like, what's our biggest one? Colorado State over Memphis. Like, Memphis is okay. Like, Drake over Missouri. That one wasn't shocking.
To
McNeese
be
over.
honest, I think the biggest one is Arkansas over St. John's at this point.
At this point, yeah. Because St. John's couldn't do anything. But you have an Arkansas team who's finally healthy,
Right.
And like you take that into consideration. And it's not. Going into that game, it didn't feel like it would be surprising if they won. Like, I just didn't buy St. John's all that much. And other people are shocked by it. That's fine. I just, do we get chaos, or are we going to have a second time where we have 4 1 seeds in the Final Four for just the second time ever? I don't know. I mean, I wasn't super crazy with my Final Four. I had 2 1s, a 5, and a 3. So I mean, it's been interesting. So it's just, I think the Big 12's done a solid job. Yeah, the SEC's got a number of teams in there at this point just because they had a bunch of teams that were all top 4 seeds. We haven't seen a lot of upsets in the tournament this year. Stupid Maryland, Colorado State just wanted 1. Like, at this point, Arkansas might be the only double-digit seed in the Sweet 16, depending upon what happens with Michigan State and New Mexico. That's wild.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's all right. I want to look at the bracket challenge real quick. Our 10-12 group that we did in partnership with Charlie Hustle. Remember, the top 2 brackets will win prizes. Let's see my groups here. No, I don't want my bracket. ESPN, load at a pace in which I actually am working, please. This is such great radio.
Oh, of course.
Isn't it awesome? Now, the problem is that ESPN's website sucks because it waits forever to load ads. I want to see who's sitting near the top right now. Oh my goodness! I'm so glad you're back, because
Is that
sitting at number 1
top?
is Jamie Steyer-Johnson with a 99.9% correct bracket, 530 points. Now, your max is not as high as some others, but you're sitting at number 1 right now.
I lost the Final Four team, but I got 29 of the first 32 games correct.
Bravo. So sitting in lead is Jamie.
We're heavily justifying the adage that knowing less makes you better. Because, boy, did I just wing it.
Well, congrats. You're also one of just 5 brackets in our group to have Iowa State winning at all. So
Contractual
there's
obligations.
That. Of course. Chris P. Can't Jump sitting in second place with 520 points. Short Legs Picks 1 and ESPN Kook 2 are tied for third with 500 points. The team with I'm going to do this real quick. The team with the max points possible, the most points possible left over. Chris P. Can't Jump has 1,860 points left. Then Patty Mac 1 with 1,830. Kelly Booth, Turnpike Picks 1. Casey Lockman's Picks 1 with 1,820 left. You will be shocked to guess that a Big 12 focused bracket challenge, Houston is the most popular champion in our group. 32% of the brackets picked, followed by Duke, Florida, Auburn, 1 seeds. Then St. John's. 9 people pick St. John's to win the national championship. 7 people pick Michigan State. They might be in trouble already. So somebody picked Michigan. Very nice. That's fun. Somebody picked.
I'm a little surprised someone actually picked Kansas.
Yeah, I
mean, I couldn't even bring myself to think about the potential of picking Kansas.
I'm in 47th place out of 218 brackets, so I'll take it. Andy, I have no idea where you are.
I'm at 30th. I'm actually on the first page.
Andy's winners? Hey, nice.
I was shocked. I was like, wait a minute. I'm actually doing halfway decent.
I'm trying to see. I see Workman 451. I wonder if that's Matt Workman over at the Bear Den podcast. Let's see. I appreciate people who put their Twitter handles in their bracket name. It's gonna make this a lot easier. I'm trying to find. Oh, there's a good friend, Robert Wetzel. He's tied for 30th. Let's see. This is such good radio, isn't it? I was trying to see all our popular guests. Who's got the last place bracket? Spencer Edelman 6's picks 13. Who had Baylor winning? Okay, had Baylor winning it all. Cool. Well, awesome.
Not only in last place, but in last place by quite a bit.
Yeah, you picked Baylor. I just don't even
almost
know.
Doubled up.
I don't even know. Okay. Well,
from the next person. That's pretty good.
One other thing we're going to talk about, of course, West Virginia, who last time we spoke got jobbed by not getting included into the tournament, and then their head coach bounced after 1 season, and so for the 4th year in a row, West Virginia will have a new head coach after the guy whose name I'm not even going to mention now is headed off to take the Indiana job. So West Virginia looking for another guy.
Hey, I said this worked out terrific for the women's team.
Same thing happened to them.
So their second hire was terrific. So hey, I mean, there's potential. And actually, it's funny because the reasoning, the situation could almost not be more similar between the two sides. Don Plitzvite came over and just thought that, okay, with the Big 12, I'm still going to have a fairly similar recruiting base, came from a mid-major, whatever, and so goes over to West Virginia, ends up leaving to take the Minnesota job when it's open because it's right within where she was, more in the Midwest. And then the second hire with Mark Keller was terrific. And so, man, I mean, if the rest of the situation can follow that same script for the men's team, then they're going to end up in an okay position. But it's obviously difficult to go through that much turnover in head coaching, especially when, that trickles down to the rest of the team.
Yeah, again, it's now the 4th year in a row they're having to get a new coach. Obviously, Holgerson ousted because of just being, Holgerson unchained. You bring in an interim for a year who,
you mean
not great.
You mean Huggins, not Holgerson?
Yeah, sorry. Oh,
I was like, wait a minute.
Also, a former West Virginia coach of football. Okay, I'm sorry. It's been a long day, and we did Disney on Ice today, so
that's all right. I got you.
A lot of Disney. So I apologize to Holgerson a little bit, I guess. Looking around at the candidates who are apparently in consideration. Jared Calhoun is apparently one of them. It's going to start heating up. Obviously, Ben McCollum is expected to take the Iowa job. Have fun with that, Ben. Boy, oh boy. So, and look, I don't have thoughts on any of these candidates because I just don't. I don't know enough about them. But Jared Calhoun is going to be one of them. Let's see who else we got. I'm gonna give him the full credit. This is Ears Sports, which is the 247 West Virginia site. Ross Hodge. I love all your thoughts on this stuff. This is great.
I mean, look, you talk about how you don't have any real thoughts about them. I don't really either.
I got nothing. Nico Medved's in here, but as far as I can tell, like Medved's going to Minnesota. Like Colorado State's season is now done. How quickly will Minnesota announce Nico Medved as the guy?
Could be by the time this drops.
It could be. It could be before. Look, just go follow Raspy Voice because as soon as a coach is hired, they'll have their thoughts on it. And I'm sorry. All right, I feel like we've been dragging on for a little bit. Speaking of, let's get to the good stuff. Speaking of good stuff, I need to set myself up for a better segue. Charlie Hustle. Sponsored here, the 1012 podcast, 1012 network as a whole. Look, the deals are done, as far as I know. That wrapped on Sunday. Then 25% off site-wide for the 3 days. If you didn't take advantage of that then, I don't know what you're doing. But in case you didn't, or you forgot, you're like, I had it in my cart, and now it's Monday, and I forgot to do it because I got distracted, and then never went back to it. Well, you can't enjoy that discount. But you can still get a discount with our promo code 1012network, TEN12, the word network, and get 15% off all non-sale items. And they have a ton of great Big 12 gear that is not always on sale. From t-shirts, sweaters, hoodies, varsity jackets, long sleeve tees, raglans. Love a good raglan. I used to wear raglans. I'm 40 now. I don't wear raglans anymore.
Is that something you can age out of?
I don't know. I just don't.
You're overthinking it, Phillip. Wear it if it makes you happy.
Allegedly. And allegedly grow out of it.
I think you can allegedly grow out of anything you want to grow out of.
Exactly.
There you go. One thing I never grow out of is great stuff from Charlie Hustle because it's super comfortable and it looks really good and it's great vintage Big 12 stuff. So go to charliehustle.com, use that promo code 1012network, TEN12, the word network, 15% off all non-sale items. Charlie Hustle, vintage, made, fresh.
Congrats, Phillip. I think that was the first ever double segue into the ad. Or
can you
into
do
the sponsor?
A mid-ad read segue when you set yourself up?
Exactly.
I mean, good luck, everybody.
It's great when the mid-ad read segue is better than the initial segue.
It's because it came organically in the first one. I had to set myself up.
That's
for
fair.
It. A lot of people right now are like, you spent the 20 minutes in the show. That's all you gave us on the men's side. I'm like, look.
Yeah, no, like you said, I mean, there's really not a lot to talk about. There's not any big weird upsets. There's not like a huge, Big 12 team that either flamed out really early or, is going a lot further than people expected them to. Like, there's just not a lot of interesting, other than the fact that it's March Madness, like always, which is always great basketball to watch. The results just haven't been anything super special.
Well, let's do this before we get to the women's. We do know 3 matchups. Obviously, Texas Tech, Arkansas. How can you not be excited about Texas Tech and Arkansas? Like that's some good old Southwest Conference fun stuff. Houston, Purdue. Yeah, I'll take Houston in that one. BYU, Alabama, 2 teams that play very similar style. Like that's a style on style. That is not a clash of styles. That's 2 teams who are going to play a very similar ball. That one should be a very close game of who can hit their threes and who can't. I mean, it's 3 really fun games, and obviously we're going to be all Big 12 in those. Which one do you like the most, Andy? Which one are you excited most to watch next week?
I mean, I'm most excited to watch the BYU Alabama one. I think it's going to be the best game. It's probably going to be the one that is going to be the most entertaining, or it could be the one that is the biggest train wreck one way or another, because both Alabama and BYU are very dependent on getting hot from 3. And so, if one team is on and the other one isn't, well, then it could probably get pretty boring pretty fast. But if both teams are on, or even both teams not on, like it's going to be a very interesting and very dramatic, a very dramatic game that is going to be very interesting. Jamie, did you just see the picture that I emailed over from earlier? Is that what you were reacting to?
No, I was
okay, well, then
laughing at
never
the
mind.
idea of two teams just both not being on, and so it being extremely ugly. But I'm sure that's gonna be.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Sorry, I kind of derailed my own point there, but look, I mean, yeah, I just think that's really what it comes down to is that's probably going to be the most interesting one gameplay wise. I think that Texas Tech Arkansas is probably the juiciest storyline.
Oh,
but
I mean, if Arizona beats Oregon and you get Arizona Duke, like that's gonna be
that's fair.
That's a big storyline just because of the brands that you get there.
Let's do it. I'm all for it.
But I Texas Tech Arkansas absolutely, BYU Bama absolutely, and I feel fairly confident in Houston beating Purdue this year.
Uh-oh. The last cookie.
You can get a new box of cookies in as fast as an hour with Walmart Express Delivery.
Are you my guilty self-conscience?
No, I'm the voice offering you promo code EXPRESS for free delivery on your first order.
Hey, who ate my cookies?
You mean, these cookies?
Order now. Welcome to your Walmart. Promotion valid for first express delivery order. $50 minimum subject to availability. Restrictions apply.
This can feel like a pretty confusing time to be a college sports fan. In a few weeks, schools will be able to share revenue and pay athletes directly for the first time, meaning it's going to be even more important for schools to find new revenue sources and figure out what to do with all their money. You have major financial institutions looking to invest in college athletics, and the value and the structure of major media rights deals have never been more important. Plus, between state houses, the federal government, and the court system, legislation around the transfer portal, name, image, and likeness, and what it actually means to be a college athlete feels like it's changing every possible week. If you are confused by any of this and want to understand how any of the stuff that goes on off the field shapes what you see on the field, check out Extra Points. I'm Matt Brown. I'm the publisher of Extra Points. I'm a longtime college sports journalist, and I spend all of my time talking to lawyers, filing open records requests, talking to athletic directors, and digging into everything else that shapes what you see in college athletics to explain it so it all makes sense here for you. If you want to understand the forces that are shaping the Big 12 and your specific institutions and need to know what needs to happen in order for your schools to be competitive, check out Extra Points at www.extrapointsmb.com.
Let's look over to the women's side. Jamie, this is your bread and butter, your forte.
Yes.
Big 12, we do know that Kansas State is in the Sweet 16.
Mm-hmm.
Very excited about that. TCU in the Sweet 16 for what I believe is the first time. Is that their first ever Sweet 16 appearance?
Maybe.
Okay.
I want to say yes, but I'm not going to say it for sure.
Okay. Baylor upset at home by Ole Miss as they have not advanced. And of course, West Virginia and North Carolina will play on Monday at 6 p.m. God's time. So hopefully we'll get one more Big 12 team to advance to the Sweet 16. Look, I'm not super surprised by the Big 12's overall thus far performance in the tournament. Is that a fair statement to you, Jamie?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest surprise has been Kansas State because I've been, as I said online, I think pretty rightfully pessimistic about what Ayoka Lee would be capable of upon her return. There was a lot of talk. They were saying, yeah, she's as healthy as she's been all year. I said, that's first of all not saying a ton, but
yeah, that was my first thought.
and so, I didn't really give them a whole lot of a shot because they had looked really, really good without her for a stretch. And then to end the season, they struggled a lot. And they figured it back out. They've reintegrated her in a really great way. They aren't running her down too much. But, I mean, today, we're recording Sunday against Kentucky. She was far more limited by foul trouble than she was by her ability to get up and down the floor to stay in the game. And that's a big reason why they were able to beat the 4-seed Kentucky on the road. And so certainly a really impressive performance there from Kansas State. did it in overtime. Really an exciting game. Serena Sundell, terrific. Maybe a few more people will know her name since it's already so many fewer than should. The hard thing for them is that they're facing the winner of USC and Mississippi State, which is more than likely going to be USC. And that's a team that has beat UCLA 2 out of 3 times this season. Who obviously, for those who don't follow the women's game as a whole, UCLA anchored by Lauren Betts, another 6'7", very, very talented center, probably the top center in the country right now, and a lot of really terrific pieces around her. They have depth, and so the fact that they had a good game plan for UCLA makes me think they're probably very prepared for Kansas State. I'm not going to say they wouldn't have any chance, but it'd be pretty slim. TCU gets a rematch with Notre Dame, who they've already beat this year. That's certainly going to be really interesting, and I'm sure that Notre Dame's going to be really up for that one. But TCU obviously has had a lot of development over the course of the season. They're playing their bench a whole heck of a lot more than they were even at that point when they beat Notre Dame over Thanksgiving. And then the other team that's still in play with West Virginia actually is favored by a number of metrics over North Carolina. And that's even with being on the road. These are two teams that really tend to rely heavily on their defense, but the ACC style is very slow, is, very down tempo, West Virginia has had its share of offensive issues. I think North Carolina has significantly more. And so that's obviously saying quite a bit. Very intrigued by that matchup. There's no one player that really presents a nightmare for West Virginia, I think. And then on the other side, I think that the duo of JJ Quinterly and Jordan Harrison, just their quickness, their versatility, and then also having some bigs that come in off the bench when there's really one center for North Carolina, and she's a little bit undersized, and Maria Gachting. I think that is an extremely, extremely compelling matchup. That's going to be a treat for a second round game. So I'm really excited about the potential there. But yeah, the other Sweet 16 teams for the Big 12, they're going to have major challenges, but have their opportunity. But West Virginia, I really have my eye on, and I did as soon as the bracket was announced.
Again, West Virginia is a 1.5 point favorite right now. If they get past North Carolina, they'll play Duke.
Which again, you want to talk about style, ACC, not as fast tempo, winning with your defense, struggled with Oregon today. If I'm West Virginia, I'm licking my chops. I'm saying, all right, we're getting right down to business here. You have been so overlooked. They obviously struggled at points during the season. I said they did not do themselves any favors in their non-conference schedule, but even so, I think a 6 seed is potentially a little bit low, but if that means that it can line you up to some favorable matchups, great, you take it.
Yeah, I said the same thing. Someone was left a comment about Oklahoma State getting screwed by getting a 7 seed and having to get matched up against a really good South Dakota State team. And I was like, look, I'm not going to argue that that's not true, but also your non-conference scheduling was atrocious. Like the Big 12, we've had this conversation multiple times this season. The Big 12 on the women's side has got to do a better job of scheduling a non-conference. I get you only have 11 non-conference games. I get you want to play as many at home as possible, but you have to do a better job in non-con.
And I think that's
I would hope
extremely evident this year. Yeah. Just to see what it does to your seeding, as well as, frankly, it's tough because the Big 12 this year was very separated. There was the top teams, there were the bottom teams, there was not a lot in the middle. And so then when you go up against a team like a 7-10 matchup for Oklahoma State, they've barely played anyone kind of in that level. They've had teams where they play that are, the analytics say, oh, they're better than Oklahoma State, but they play up to their level. And so that's how we saw them compete with teams like TCU, teams like Baylor. But then they struggled against inferior opponents as well. And so you go in and you just have not had this practice. You have not had this game experience against a fairly evenly matched opponent, and they just weren't able to get it done down the stretch. And that's not the only such case. I think that Baylor was a really similar situation as well. But I mean, Ole Miss had a massive chip on their shoulder. But yeah, I definitely think that if you needed any more justification for the necessity of improving the scheduling, it's there in spades.
So hopefully the lesson is learned for next year, Big 12. Like you've got to schedule better. You just have to. I'm not saying you can't have, out of an 11-game schedule, 5 or 6 cupcakes at home. That's fine. Get your wins, but you have got to do better.
I mean,
just put yourself in a better spot here.
This also feels to me like a lot of the teams where that was the issue weren't necessarily expecting to be as good as they were this year. I mean, like, after what happened with Oklahoma State last year, I mean, coming into the year, I don't think that anybody thought that Oklahoma State's non-conference schedule was going to be a problem for them.
Well, I don't think Oklahoma State.
Right, because I don't think a lot of Oklahoma State, like, I think that schedule was put together with the, hey, we need to build confidence in this team so that we can, get this team developed to where it needs to be and potentially be good next year. Like,
but they're not the ones that I'm the most irritated by.
You're irritated by West Virginia.
I'm irritated by West Virginia because they knew
that one's fair.
They knew what they had coming back, and they decided to have an abysmal non-con, and it hurt them once they got into conference play as well. So I mean, it's a pretty singular sort of complaint, and then there's a few others where it's like, okay, space it out a little bit more. But no, it's not so much a full conference thing at this moment. It's more of a West Virginia do better, but they're going to have a very different team again next year. So who knows what the plan's going to be.
So the takeaway here is do better next year. We'll keep an eye on it, and hopefully when schedules drop for next season, that's what we see are more competitive schedules. I don't feel I'm not going to pick a Big 12 team if there's a Big 12 team I'm going to pick to make the Final Four, it's TCU, although West Virginia, if they, based off of the matchups that you've discussed, is at least tantalizing. I mean, you would fully expect that if they were able to get past North Carolina and Duke, you're going to face South Carolina, and that's a different problem in and of itself. So
I mean, look, at that point they'll have already beaten 2 other teams from the Carolinas. So what's another one?
Just finish the whole Carolina area off.
They'll have demolished the whole region.
I do want to, since again, last time we were able to talk, Jamie, we were talking about some Big 12 jobs that were open. We know one that's filled, one that's got some finalists as far as candidates, and one that we just don't seem to know anything about. Let's start with Arizona State making the hire we all hoped that they would be able to, and pulling it off, beating off Arkansas. Sorry, beating out. Maybe I shouldn't. Yeah, words. To land Molly Miller from Grand Canyon. I was gonna say beating off with a stick, and then I left the second half of it out, and so that's.
I think we just move on.
Grand Canyon head coach Molly Miller is going to be the head coach of Arizona State, which is look. At this point in doing this, I love the the guy on. I forget his. He's on the Cover 3 podcast, but the bit's like, great hire. I have no idea if it'll work. That's my expectation for everything. Is like, I like this hire. I hope that it works. I would expect that it would, but we have no idea. But I think Molly Miller was honestly, to me, like the best thing that Arizona State could do was get her, and that's exactly what they did.
Yeah, I mean, definitely works out, I think, extremely well. She gets to recruit the same area. She has said previously that a big reason she hadn't taken another job prior to this season was because she really likes the area out in Arizona. And so being able to stay really close to home and going to Arizona State certainly helps a lot, I think. She's
literally just across the metro.
Yeah. I mean, probably doesn't even need to move. And so you get a very young, up-and-coming sort of coach who, if everything goes well, can be around for a while, can really build something. And as I said last time we talked about this is an Arizona State program that is not far removed from being an NCAA tournament team, from being a very competitive team when it was in the Pac-12. And so I definitely think that this is a great move. It's obviously a really crucial time in college athletics to be fielding competitive teams. It's a really crucial time for the teams that have moved into new conferences where you have a lot of turmoil in some programs, but the programs that are seeing turnover, that are hiring new coaches, are ones that maybe have not had as much recent success as Arizona State has. So, that's sort of a similar thing with BYU, actually, where they've had fairly recent success, but just not as much in the past couple of years. And so they're going to be going in a new direction once again. But definitely they have, I think, a lot of opportunity where they already have had success in recent history. They have a recruiting pool with a lot of really talented players. Utah, Colorado area has some really great talent, as well as obviously the Arizona, really not that far from that same pool. So I think that Molly Miller is a great get. She's been highly sought after for a couple of years now. And I'm always a really big fan of hiring young when they have had proven success already, because if you can keep someone around for a long time, that's how you build a really consistent program.
Yeah, I mean, it really just comes down to it's a fantastic process, but the results are still undetermined at this point. So
correct. We can piggyback that off into BYU. By the way, thank you BYU for firing Amber Whiting so that her daughter Amare would transfer to Oklahoma State. We love interconference transfers, and I occasionally like to be petty. BYU, we thought this would be done by now, and they would do the internal hire, which it's 2 weeks since we chatted about this, and there have been no updates.
No.
Even looking for coaching information, any articles are 2 weeks old.
Yeah. I think that a lot of people expected this to go really quickly, and so maybe the feelers weren't quite being put out yet, and so it's kind of strange that it's been such a long time since we've heard anything. I do wonder what it is happening behind the scenes, because to me, I feel like if they didn't have a direction, if they didn't have a pretty clear idea of what they were doing, we would see more entries into the portal, even just as kind of an exploratory thing, so that they could start talking to other teams. And then, okay, if the hire is good, I'll withdraw. But the fact that players like Delaney Gibb haven't entered makes me think that maybe they've been told, yeah, this is probably going to be our hire, but they're still hashing things out behind the scenes. But I have nothing to back that up. Completely just speculation. I'm really shocked that it's been this long.
Yeah, it's definitely surprising. And it's not just it's been 2 weeks. It's been 2 weeks without any information at all. And look, when it comes to non-football men's basketball stuff, you don't always have the media pushing these kinds of things, but BYU's got a ton of media.
Mm-hmm.
There's plenty of BYU's a very different situation.
If you're going to get something from somewhere, like BYU is one of the top places you actually would get something if there were much smoke to be had. And so it makes me think again that they probably can't have really been interviewing a bunch of people, because that would get out. And so that lends itself more to the theory of them promoting the longtime assistant. But then what's the holdup?
Right. Why do we not have
the only other explanation that seems even remotely reasonable is that they have someone in mind who is still coaching somewhere. But the problem is that there's nobody who jumps out immediately as that's someone who makes sense for BYU, or that would be interested in BYU at this point. So it definitely feels like there's no story, because there really is no story to be had, but the story is why is it not done yet then?
I'll put out some feelers. We're having this conversation. I'm like, I should reach out to A, B, and C, who I think I might get some information from. So we'll see where that goes. Last one to talk about is Houston. Shout out to Chris Baldwin at Paper City Mag. A list of finalists that they published on Saturday includes current UTSA former Texas head coach Karen Aston, current Old Dominion coach Delisha Milton-Jones, and former Kentucky head coach Matthew Mitchell are apparently the top three names, with Aston and Mitchell being kind of the front runners ahead of Milton-Jones at this moment. Jamie, what are your thoughts on this finalist list that has been published by Paper City?
I mean, I definitely heard Karen Aston's name thrown around a lot. I like her as a coach a lot. I think that she gets a lot out of her players. I think that she is someone who has had a fairly long career, has had a good bit of success. Didn't really get it done at Texas, but was in just a weird spot in the timing of when she was there, and had just some sort of weird stuff there, that I don't know that it was completely unsuccessful, but definitely not the level that Texas wants to be at.
Like they are now.
Yeah. I'm intrigued by it for sure. I mean, obviously she has a lot of history in the state, so wouldn't hurt probably to have someone who has experience in the Big 12, looking to take any kind of step up from where they've been. It's hard to do, but it's not a high bar, so to speak, with the way that Houston started off in the Big 12. So, I mean, it's certainly interesting. I don't know a whole lot about Mitchell, but the name that I know the best is definitely Karen Aston. I don't think it would be a bad hire. It's a little bit, I think, on the safer side of, you don't know that it's going to be like a massive home run. You're competing for championships right away, but I think that you are pretty certain that you're going to see an improvement. And I think that that's kind of what Houston needs.
I believe this would be athletic director Eddie Nunez's first hire.
Mm-hmm.
He did not make the tennis hire. That was made before he arrived. So this would be his first hire. Look, with Houston, they don't have two things. One, I don't think they have as much money as people thought they did when they joined the Big 12. And I just don't know the level of internal push when it comes to non-football and men's basketball
Yeah,
stuff.
it's one thing to say, we need to fill a really competitive women's basketball team, but it's another to commit the resources to do so. So otherwise it's just kind of lip service.
Right. And if you can't do things internally, do you have an external benefactor? Having some conversations with people about some different sports around the Big 12 about things, like, I think a lot more programs that you're going to see have success that are not football and men's basketball are going to have success and resources because somebody is funding that program, not the athletic department. Somebody or a group of somebodies are basically running and financing that program. Whereas the athletic department's basically spending next to nothing on it. It's important to them, but they've found benefactors to keep that program going and building. And so it's very dependent upon, is it important to the athletic department? Do they have somebody who it's important to who wants to put the money into it? It's just kind of where these things seem to be headed with a lot of non-football and men's basketball situations, unless you just, have a ton of money because you're the SEC or the Big Ten and you're making bukus and hand over fist. So much money you don't even know what to do with. Okay, well, these are, of course, things that we're going to keep an eye on, and we'll keep track of the tournament moving forward. Now, look, we will not do a basketball show next Monday because I'll be out of town. And so I'm going to get back and not want to record after a weekend away. Sorry. But I tell you what, if a Big 12 team is in the Final Four, we'll figure something out. Okay? We will. Because I won't just be like, I got some. I will see
you that Monday. I'm sorry. That Monday after. Then
I got some fair criticism from our Scott and Holman podcast guys who cover Houston, who are awesome, for not doing as good a job when Houston had success like 2 years ago. So, and it's fair. It's fair. So I will. We won't be here next weekend, but if we got a Big 12 team that makes the Final Four, we will not ignore it. I'll just leave it at that. In Big 12 and men's and women's. Heck, if TCU makes Final Four, hey Treewasser, in case you're listening, Or Frog Preacher if I've got to. I got to get him on for baseball soon. We'll be talking to you. Y'all, I'm going to wrap it here because I'm tired. Somehow I have both. I have the lyrics to Can I Get a Chihu now as a Can I Get a Go Pokes in my head. Again, I have 3 girls. There's a lot of Disney songs. Buddy. Yeah.
Hopefully the rest of your night will go better than it is for Iowa State and Arizona right now.
Shh.
Yeah. Look, when the most interesting part of your game is the broadcast team talking about brothers that are beat writers for Ole Miss and Iowa State, you know something's gone terribly wrong. And Arizona apparently forgot that the game was starting when it did.
That one's early. Just let it. That one.
They're doing better now, right? But
Iowa State, Ole Miss. Damn you, Iowa State. Damn you, Iowa State.
I mean,
no,
not unexpected with injuries. Though.
Damn you, no. Fallible human bodies.
I can. Because Ole Miss is not. It's not that good. Okay, yeah. Cyclone fans, rejoice. Softball swept UCF this weekend in ridiculous, incredible, what the hell just happened fashion. So we will talk about that on Thursday. This is the 10-12 Softball Show. Bye, Charlie Hustle. Jay Styes on Twitter. Y'all have a good week. Spring break, if it's your spring break. We'll talk to y'all on Thursday.
This podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Taxes was feeling so stuck. Sitting in traffic, squeezing into a parking spot, all to squeeze in getting tax help during your lunch break. Now Taxes is a TurboTax expert who does your taxes for you, while you go about your day getting real-time notifications about their progress and the most money back guaranteed. Now this is Taxes. Intuit TurboTax. Get an expert now on TurboTax.com. Only available with TurboTax Live Full Service. Real-time updates only in iOS mobile apps. See guarantee details at TurboTax.com/guarantees.